It says here you did last time, the agenda.
Well, then it's somebody else's turn.
Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Jacksonville Water and Sewer Advisory Committee to order. With that, could I please have a motion for the adoption of tonight's agenda?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda and the minutes and everything else.
Well, one at a time, so agenda first. Do I have a second for that?
I'll second.
Second, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Now we're on to the minutes, James. So could I have a, well, I hope everybody's had a chance to go over the minutes first. So are there any errors or changes that anybody's noticed?
No.
No? Okay, with that, can I have a motion to approve the minutes from the October 10th meeting?
I'm making a motion.
I'll
John?
second it.
Jill can second.
Jill second, thank you very much. All right, with that, could I please have those in favor of motion by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Onwards, presentations. The water and sewer project update. Jason, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Jason Miles, I'm the city's senior civil engineer, and I'm here to give you a capital improvement plan update on all the projects that we're currently working on. The Henderson Drive water and sewer improvements, we are complete. This was the replacement of water and sewer pipes. We recently finished the work, and we are looking forward to NCDOT repaving Henderson Drive in spring, summer of this year.
Everybody's looking for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I influent infiltration. We all understand this is the purpose of this project is to reduce the amount of I&I by looking at sewer lining options, that sort of thing, to keep from the inflow coming into the pipes and inundating our system, taxing it and creating, problems down the road for our LTS land treatment site as well. So this also includes manhole repairs. The work will begin early 2020 with the triangle area. This is a network map here of the triangle area of our sanitary sewer system.
I'd kind of like to add to that, especially for our residents that have lived here a long time. That used to be a mobile home park. And as you can see, there's still commercial businesses around the mobile home park, but the mobile homes have been removed. And it's our understanding that, they're looking to change direction with the use of that property. However, as we've talked before about Holiday City, mobile homes generate, unique chances for water to get into our system because over years, a home may be pulled out and another one pulled in, and they may use the same sewer service, or they may just put a new one in. You never know. So we find, services that have just been abandoned or stubbed up under a mobile home and hadn't been closed off. So this is one of the areas we see a lot of I&I. We can't go in and abandon the mains, or at least all of the mains, because of, the commercial business around it. And actually down here is the county's bus repair facility, and it also goes through that system. So, and our triangle pump station is right up here. And that's one of the, when it rains hard, we see it go high. So we're pretty excited about the opportunity to come in and line this sewer, which will help take care of a lot of those services that are abandoned or we don't even know they exist.
So was that one primarily determined based on the pumping station records or smoke tests, or a combination of both?
Over the years, it's a combination of both. I know that the owner of the mobile home park had worked with us a couple of times to try to close a few things off, a few abandoned services that we found, but that station continues to go high, and we suspect that, and when I say high, it's quickly, it's, you see the rainfall and you see the station almost immediately reflect, so it's, inflow getting into the system. It's not necessarily infiltration, which is groundwater. So it is coming directly into the system because it's weather driven. And we continue to see that, so we're hoping that this project will greatly assist with that.
That's an older area too, isn't it?
is.
Was that master metered? I mean, there was an individual meter to every
No, I believe that whole
part.
was master meter, yes, sir.
That'd be a lot to abandon that many services.
Yes, well, and here we're just strictly talking about the sewer services. Because with the water service with the meter, we could at least cut it off at the meter.
Right.
And there may have been, I'm sure it was served by a larger main, so there's probably a valve that were able to shut off that service. And of course, if we miss something and a water leak were to develop, at least we would know about it. There would be evidence of a water leak. But this is, sewer coming from above ground, getting into our system, and then going to our lift station.
Where that lift station is, or the pump station is that a flood-prone area? Has that been retrofitted up higher and sealed like some of the other ones have been?
It has. I wish I had a picture of it for you. It's, the controls are actually elevated, and there's a platform that when our workers go out there, they can stand on, and it's probably 3 or 4 feet off the ground.
Is it right by the
This
bridge?
is a large stream that comes through.
Where's it located? By the bridge?
It is, as you're going out, there is, this is a strip center. Let's see, get my bearings. So the Dairy Queen's down here on the corner. And then this is a hibachi or something.
Hibachi grill restaurant.
Yes, and there's let's see, is that the,
That's
no, that's the bank.
Yeah.
So the hibachi's here, this is the bank. And then there's Excess Fit and the tanning place and a couple other in this strip center. And the pump station's down here, and across the road is R&W and the roller skate rink. I can't think of the name of it.
Roller City.
Roller City. So, and it's you can see it from the road. If you drive by, you can see it. It's evident. But the station itself, we don't get flooding into the station itself.
Okay.
So everything is raised, and we have flood-proof hatches on it. It's coming in through the system.
If it's not gonna be used as a mobile home park anymore, are they literally gonna go in and dig up the pumps? Is that what happens?
We don't know what their master plan is yet.
But if they're gonna build something, they will, won't they?
Maybe they may use some of them, but all of this is the primary line right here.
Mm-hmm,
It comes down.
mm-hmm.
It goes right to the station, and then obviously here, and then this is triangle motor in. So you have, and then this is what serves the back of the shopping center.
Mm.
So there are a few in here that could be abandoned, but you can see the large majority of them
They lead
we
to
have
other
to
things.
keep in service.
I would think that they would, when they do the foundations, if they had to go deep enough to hit the pipe, then yeah, it would be abandoned.
And I would expect if they,
Yeah.
if they do something large there to where they are putting some sort of foundation, we would persuade them. I mean, we can't have an active sewer
cut it and cap
under,
it, right?
so they would have to relocate it.
Okay.
So right now with the I&I, you're going to be addressing all of those individual pipes, or just the ones that are actively working right now?
What we're talking about doing is the ones that I drew. I'll tell you what. You'll give me just a second. I'm capable. I may not be capable. So we're going to line everything here. Let's see, and this and all of this. I'm not sure about this line behind the building because I don't know if that's our main or if it's a service. But if it's ours, then we would line that also. And then what we're talking about doing, what we're discussing is possibly when we line it, not reinstating this.
Right.
So the line stays there, but we don't actually spend the money lining each individual one.
So it'd be closed off?
It'd be capped.
It'd be
Yes, it
closed.
would just be closed off. So if you ever had to reinstate it, you could go in from inside the pipe and just reinstate that.
Gotcha, okay.
Is that line owned by the city or is it owned by what was the?
I think
mobile
those
home
are
park?
all, I think they are probably all maintained by the city.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is a major project that will be starting this spring. The plans for phase 1 are complete. Phase 2 plans will be complete by end of this month, and the third phase is the outfall portion of it, which the design of which is underway. We're at about 35% design on that now. So, but we'll be able to start construction of this this spring. This project includes underground utility work, excuse me, including water and storm sewer, as well as sidewalks and landscape medians.
And then repaving.
Right,
of the new
exactly.
Bridge Street.
We anticipate this project to take, we're looking at some bidding options here, but we anticipate this project to take at least a year, possibly longer. You know, kind of depends on how we set up the bid. But we're going to obviously do that in the city's best advantage and to lessen the impacts of our business owners downtown.
Did the discrepancy of asphalt thicknesses all get cleared up?
Yes, you know, you kind of have to work with what you have there, you know, in terms of the elevations. So,
That was, I think that influenced some of the bid prices because it was a lot thicker, as I recall. Then it was off in some locations. Or am I thinking the wrong site?
I think you're thinking of Henderson
Henderson
Drive
had
where
that
we
issue,
ran
right.
into some asphalt sections that were 12 inches thick.
Right.
And then we had to repave.
Yeah.
We had to match existing.
That divider thing is gonna make it one lane on each side, is that correct?
correct.
That's the plan.
Mm-hmm.
Will you have to wait on DOD to repave it, like you are Henderson, or?
No, this is a city
Right.
street.
That's a city street, right?
Yes,
City will
yes,
take
it's a
care of
city
it,
street.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions about New Bridge Street? The vehicle wash facility, the construction contract has been awarded, so we will start, you know, virtually any week now. This is to improve drainage capacity at the fleet maintenance wash bay. This is the big one, the Parkwood Regional Pump Station and Western Trunk Sewer. The design is complete. This again is the sewer main for the new regional collection system on the north side of Jacksonville. The construction timeline, excuse me, or when we plan to start, will be based on, you know, projected development. We're going to have a council discussion about this next month.
So by design complete, you mean all the way across the river?
Yes.
Aha.
And easements are obtained and permits.
And permits.
Really? They've all been
So
obtained?
literally, we could bid it tomorrow,
Okay.
but we're just, again, it's such a large, inexpensive project. We don't want to do it any sooner than we have to.
But the corridor has been reserved
Yes.
Correct.
and safe. Okay.
The Decatur lift station elimination. Excuse me, this project entails replacing the Decatur lift station with a new gravity trunk sewer. We've been monitoring the flow at this station to make sure that we're understanding the entire problem there, especially with potential I&I. So we just completed the flow monitoring and now we're evaluating the data that we have in hand. We'll complete the design this year.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but initially what we found in our flow monitoring is there's a lot of flow there above what we would normally expect for a basin of this size.
Correct.
Which is an indicator that we have inflow and infiltration into this area.
Have you smoke tested that area already or?
We have previously, but we probably need to do that again. We've smoke tested a lot of Northwoods over the years, you know, not all at once, but that may be something that we have to come back and look at again.
Was that one, the one you also had a lot of grease that was unexpected because the residential amount?
No, that was actually the other basin, which is Henderson.
I think you ice picked that area too.
No, that was Parkwood. Yes.
Next project is the Ellis Lift Station upgrades. This one had significant flood damage. We're looking at some long-term solutions that will set the station up to be perhaps relocated in the same area but uphill to get it out of the floodway there. We're looking at some grant funding that is tied to better resiliency, meaning the businesses that are all draining to this area and residential areas, and it'll keep them functioning in case we ever have another, Florence type event, that sort of thing.
Is the funding with grants available for both repair and replace, or just one?
Go ahead.
The repair will be done with FEMA funds.
Mm-hmm.
So unfortunately, this is one of those that continues to drag out.
Yep.
I mean, obviously, we have the station operating, and Anthony's folks do a great job of making sure that we don't have problems there, but it takes a lot of work and man hours to keep everything running because it was flooded. And we lost one of our bypass pumps and our generator at this location. So what we're talking with FEMA about is replacing the pump, replacing the generator, and making the electrical repairs inside the station. The challenge is that FEMA won't give us and FEMA estimates the cost. So they've estimated the cost at roughly $350,000 to do that. Well, FEMA would also like to see us make improvements to flood-proof the station and make it more resilient. The problem is at the max, they'll only give us equal to 100% of the value of the repairs. So we're talking a $750,000 total to not only repair the station, but make it more resilient. And I hate to say it, but if you compare this station with Henderson Drive, that was a $3 million project. So, and these stations were built at the same time, same design. It's not enough money. I mean, so we've Jason and engineering has done and Talia, when she was here, has done a great job of identifying grant funds that are available through other sources, and that funding source is, we think maybe eligible closer to the $4 million range. So
You keep doing this with this, and it needs to be moved.
Yes.
I mean, it just sits there in a hole.
It does. The problem is the sewer mains that feed this station come in from 4 directions. So to relocate it, you've got to figure out how to intercept 4 different sewer lines that all come literally almost east, west, north, south. Right. So it's not like you can just pick it up and move it. And traditionally, sewer follows, we try to do sewer by gravity because that's the cheapest way to move it. So if you think about the land surface, sewer kind of follows the land surface. Well, if you think about the land surface, where's the lowest point? Near a river, near a creek, near a ditch. So that's where you locate your lift stations because that's where you can branch out from. So it's not unusual to have one near a creek like this. The problem is this one literally sits in the floodway of the creek. And of course, over time, as you can imagine, Western Boulevard being built out, the industrial park area being built out, Bell Fork Road, this Scales Creek actually reaches all the way to 17. So it even includes part of Country Club Road. So that's a large drainage area. And then it is, unfortunately, the bottleneck is just below the station at 24 because there's old undersized culverts under 24 that we don't control and we can't upgrade.
Have you talked to DOT about those
We
at all?
have,
And what
many times.
What did DOT say?
It's on their radar.
Okay.
So
You can't send them a bill or anything like that though, can you?
unfortunately, I can't. But so what we are looking at is going to more of a typical type station you would see for that you see in our newer stations, which is submersible pumps. So the pumps are actually down inside the wet well, and then the controls are typically above ground. But with those controls, it gives us the opportunity to relocate them because you just have to carry the wiring to the pumps. So we possibly can locate the controls for the pumps, the generator, you know, that powers the station, and then it's just what we do with that extra bypass pump. That's probably going to be the largest challenge. But that's not a cheap, like I said, we use the existing structure for Henderson Drive. We turned it into submersible pumps, and that project was I think it was $3.1 million, if I remember right. So as you can imagine, we're looking at least $3 million to do exactly what we did there. But here we have to locate the pumps remotely or try to deal with relocating 4 different sewer lines.
That's ugly.
Can you bring it up with DOT again, saying, you know, their pipes are causing you to have this amount of repair cost?
They don't care, it's the state.
We've tried. The problem is the culverts are just before the new access. So if you know where the new Wilson Gate is, the overpass, the culverts are probably 300 yards towards City Hall before maybe a little bit further than that, but extremely close to that overpass. And now the ramp exiting the base actually goes across it.
Do you think that made flooding worse in that area or not really?
It flooded before that.
Oh, I know.
I think, and of course, Florence is a historic event,
Yeah,
so
but this thing's flooded for
It's been a long time.
it has.
A long
But we
time.
haven't had it as high. If you look, you can barely see it in the picture, but this is a little vent that's about 2.5 feet off the floor of the pump station. We've had it up that high, but since I've been here, we haven't, I can't remember a time it was actually inside. But that's 5 feet off the ground. So you're talking, it was 7.5 feet deep right in that area.
There's no way to
Maybe more.
divert the water on our property or anything to make it any better, is there?
We've actually talked about that, whether that might be possible. Could we intercept that? The only problem is to do that with the size basin that we're talking about. Jason's comment was that it would be a small lake. You know, you're looking at,
You can see it right
you might
here.
as well, you might as well make it a, you know, an amenity to do something like
Could
that.
have a community pool.
Or a community lake anyway for paddle boats and those kind of things.
No kind of retaining wall, nothing like that's gonna work?
No, and we, at one point, we looked, if you recall, we had a project in the CIP for a earthen berm to go around this that was
Yeah.
about 4 or 5 feet tall to keep, you know, the normal flooding that we were seeing. And if we'd have done that, it would have just trapped that much water around. It would have flooded over that and then just trapped that much water around the station. But again, it's in a floodway, so we couldn't make that improvement. I did look at purchasing inflatable bladders. They're you know, a really thick rubber or PVC material, and you roll them out, and they're literally in a roll. You get the size you need, and it goes by diameter. You roll them out, and you just lay them across each other, and then you fill them all up with water, and it creates temporary dams. And you can get them up to about 5 feet high, but again, that's still not high enough.
The water plant chemical tank base repair work, this design has sort of evolved a bit. We've got some new ideas to incorporate into this. The consulting engineer is still working on the design at this time. You may recall that this project was bid back in 2018 and was significantly over budget. So we
Like 3 times.
Right. So we're taking a different look at this and working on that design at this time. Water plant maintenance bridge. This project stems from the need to get out over the trains and do some maintenance work over them. We've been evaluating equipment versus you know, structures, that sort of thing, to give us access to those areas. We've arrived at a decision to try some We think that's a pretty simple solution, you know, doesn't require much maintenance for scaffolding, that kind of thing. So we're going to try that out, see how that works, and hopefully that solves all of our problems. It also will allow us to get up to the big fans that are up in the roof, to repair those and get all of our, you know, ventilation equipment operating again.
There was a problem with putting big equipment in there, wasn't there, because of the weight on the floor?
That's correct. The grates in the front that you can actually see here are rated for equipment. The grates that run all the way down that mirror this just in the back is not rated. It's personnel rated, but not equipment rated. So that's what's somewhat forcing us to look at other options. The other challenge is you can't really tell from the picture, but if you recall from our visits at the water plant, it's pretty narrow between the trains. Mm-hmm. So maneuvering any type of lift or anything in there is pretty difficult.
How high up are you talking about they need to go?
Well, to get to the fans, we're probably 40 feet or better.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, up there. But what about the top of the trains?
15, 12?
It's about 16.2
Okay.
inches to get on the top of those trains. The real trick is you just can't stand on top of those trains. You just can't do it.
No, if one of you guys fell.
Well, that's part of it, yeah. I know a person that fell. So.
Yeah, you guys and the damage to equipment and everything else, yeah.
Yes, damage is.
Yeah. So what are you talking about? Putting scaffolding in, doing whatever you need to do in one area and then moving it and then just doing maintenance?
Yes. And some of the scaffolding we're looking at is what they use to side houses with. I don't know if you've seen it. It's a column that goes up here and a column that goes up here, and you have a plank between them, and you can raise them. Mm-hmm. That's what we're looking at. They're pretty quick set up and take down. They don't have a huge footprint, and they can hold about 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, but they're not that heavy.
No, and we found some that actually go up 50 feet, 48 feet, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pretty close.
You're gonna have a couple of people standing below with attachment, right?
We have
Standing
tie
back.
off.
So are you talking about like buying them, not renting them?
Yes.
Because a lot of people rent them.
Yes, we're talking. Joe actually went to United Rentals to see if we could rent some, and they don't have any that we can find anywhere. So.
Not of the type that
We're
were
looking
online. They were shocked actually. It's like, wow, that's neat.
Yeah. I mean, it's literally a small footprint, just looks like a column. And they're, as far as purchasing, they're, for what you're getting, pretty inexpensive.
I take it because of the great work at the bottom, you're gonna have like good feet.
Well, the good thing is where we could set these up, it would actually be concrete.
On the concrete, not on the grates, right?
Okay.
Because it's such a small footprint.
Sounds good.
Do they not make them with the tires on?
No, the way this works is it's a small, about a foot square that stands, and then the column that goes up I think was 8 inches, and it's extendable to whatever height you need. You just put it together in sections, and then off of that square stand, it's like a V, and that V has 2 wheels. And so what you do is you can lay it down if you need to and roll it. So you can take some of the top sections off and leave just the bottom section, and one person can wheel the stand. We watched a video online, and
I was going to say, have
they
either one of
will
you
go-
actually seen it?
It's
Yes.
really neat the way you control it. You control it with basically a power drill. You just take the drill and it raises you up. And that was pretty amazing.
Nice.
And it's what we were looking at. We watched 2 men put it together, stand it up, and go up in it, and it took them 3 minutes or 4 minutes. They had a timer on the video,
For you. Okay.
so it looks pretty easy and quick.
Lot better than 3 times the estimate that was the last one on the 10.
Yes. You want me to do this?
Sure.
I know we've talked about this one several times. I believe the last information we gave you is where we currently are, but I'll just run through that real quickly. We evaluated wells 2 through 5. Well, actually, it was 2, 4, and 5. It was 3 of the wells, and we were going to do some well house work, some control work, but we said, you know, if we're going to spend this money above ground, we need to make sure what's in the ground is in good shape. And we found out what's in the ground is not in good shape and really wasn't worth spending the money above ground that we needed to spend. So we started looking at what other options are, and we were not using well 1 at the time. And we decided, well, why don't we go look at well 1 because we haven't been utilizing it. And we actually pulled the pump and cambered the well. It was in really good shape. It is a very good candidate to rehab the well itself, you know, line the well. We think that we will get good quantity. You know, we know the quality is great because it's Black Creek, but we think we'll get good quantity. They're thinking somewhere in the 400 to 500 gallon minute range, which is kind of right where we want to be. And it does take some pump changes and control changes and possibly even some piping changes, because the reason we hadn't been operating that well is we couldn't run it when we were running the other wells. And we think that was due to head pressure on the line. You know, well 1 was there first, so originally it just pumped all the way into the city. But as we added wells to that line that it was pumping into, we drove the pressure up on that line. So we think what would happen is we would actually put more pressure on the line than that pump could handle and send water into the city. So we would end up just shutting the pump. The pump would shut off. You know, it had a protective switch in it and would just shut off. So that's a great candidate. And then, as you'll recall, we'll come back and reevaluate 2 through 5 and look at possibly abandoning or converting some of those wells to monitoring wells and maybe drill 1 or 2 in replacement. We've generally talked with the state about that, and they are in support.
How close is that well to the road?
To the road, it sits a couple hundred feet off. It's not likely to be hit.
You said that about other things the city owned too, didn't you?
It's about 100 yards back.
Okay, yeah.
And it's hidden behind trees.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, it looked like it was close, that's why I'm
Yeah,
wondering.
it's just not as close as it looks on the map.
Okay.
I think
So-
that's happened before.
And we expect, so all
Right
the
on that highway.
Yes.
Yeah, what was it, the
it was the chlorine
chlorine
station.
station got hit.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
Vehicle got run off the road and ran right into it, ruined it.
Took it out. Yes. So and we, all of the testing that we've needed to do and all the camera work has been done. So now we're ready to move to design, now that we have what our actual scope should be.
When you do the additional wells, will they be done in such a way that you won't end up with that overpressure and you won't have a pump
Yes,
problem?
absolutely. That'll all be taken into consideration.
So will well 1 become the new chlorination station?
That's a great question. So what we're looking at is actually chlorinating at each well like we do 6 and 7. So we'll have small, you know, inside chlorination stations at each well. That's just that's the cheapest way we found to be able to do it. That's a great question.
Red Bar Force Main Relocation. This project is currently on hold. You're probably aware of the dollar amounts involved with this. So right now it's sort of hard to justify that. We're still looking at that as a possible way to get 1.1 million gallons per day out to the base as opposed to the LTS to relieve some pressure from the LTS. But I think the last estimates we looked at were in the $11 million range or so.
Was that mainly for the branch going across Northeast Creek?
So they, when they did this study, they looked at 5 different options, if I remember correctly. And they all 5 started at the Bryn Mawr lift station, and all 5 went to the base, but they, 2 or 3 of them went up. If you imagine coming out of Northeast Creek Park where the lift station is and going up toward Huff Drive, actually a couple of the scenarios went up Huff Drive across Northeast Creek to Piney Green Road, and then came in through our Poplar Branch pump station that we have a partnership with Onwassa to provide sewer in that area. And then it went through Onwassa's main, through our force main to Onwassa's system, and through some of Onwassa's pump stations to the base. And then we looked at several routes. This was the recommended route. That's the reason we showed it, where it just comes out the back of the station, goes across the creek, meanders through what is Hunter's Creek, and then ties directly into the base with a force main. And we also looked coming out to 24 and all the way down 24. This one was not the highest in construction cost, but at the top end of the range. The going over to Piney Green Road was much cheaper in construction cost. I think it was in the $7 million range, I believe. And the problem was we had to upgrade our station, and we had to upgrade Onwassa's station and some of their system. And while it made it, and then you had to continue to maintain those stations. And if you look at, they also analyzed the O&M cost over a 20-year period. And if you looked at the construction cost and the O&M over that 20-year period, while that option was cheaper up front, it was much more expensive in the long run. Because here you're maintaining the station you already have. And actually, I think they said that you could do it with the pumps that we currently have. So then you're just maintaining a force main because you're already maintaining the other stuff anyway.
But the pipes on the other side through Hunter's Creek, those are already existing?
No, that would be all new. The yellow line would be all new.
Okay.
So, but again, when you're talking that type of a cost, it really, at this point, that cost kind of outweighs the benefits that you would get. That goes back to capacity at land application site. I'm not saying at some point that this won't be a beneficial cost that we will need to spend, maybe even at a higher rate, but that time is not now. So, and we've got other projects that are much more important, so that's what we're focused on.
So is Hunter's Creek currently on Wassa or Jacksonville?
On Wassa.
It is on Wassa.
Yes. It was a private system that was taken over by Onwassa.
Okay. So you'd be having your lines, if you went this route, laying next to
Onwassa's lines. Yes, it would be following some of the lines that Onwassa has in the ground.
But it wouldn't be a case of you could just join in with their lines?
Correct.
Okay.
It would have to be separate. This would be a force main.
Okay.
You want to take this one?
Sure, I'll take this one too. So we currently have a project that we're working on. It's monitoring wells in the Castlehane Aquifer. I know that for those of you that have been on this board for a while, you've seen this graphic before when Dr. Sproul came to talk to you. And the project is a joint water resources group project. So that's us, the city, Onwassa, and the base working together. And what we're really working toward is identifying this red line that you see, which is what we call the freshwater-saltwater interface. And we're trying to identify this in the Castlehane Aquifer. The reason for that is not related to the Capacity Use Act in the Black Creek Aquifer that we've talked about so many times. The purpose of this is to make sure that we don't get to that point in the Castlehane, because the base only pulls from the Castlehane Aquifer. We pull from the Castlehane Aquifer, and Onwassa pulls from the Castlehane Aquifer. And if you look on a map where we sit relative to the base is much closer to the ocean than we are. So they're much closer to that saltwater, freshwater interface. The problem is we don't know where it is. So what we're we have, if you'll think back to the presentation that Dr. Sproul gave, we're trying to locate monitoring wells around the county, strategically locate them around the county to try to find that interface, or at least be able to monitor if we find it moving. And the two locations we're currently looking at, there's actually three. I only included two because the first phase of this project is only the two locations. The first location is in the Hubert area. We're actually talking with Sandridge Elementary School to locate on their site. We've actually had good conversation with Steve Myers, and he's verbally agreed that that might be an okay location, that we can move forward with survey work to get an easement and locate it's actually four monitoring wells on that site. And the four monitoring wells would be the lower Castle Hayne, the middle Castle Hayne, and then the upper Castle Hayne. And then the fourth well would be surficial, so 40 feet down or so. And then I don't have a picture, but when we talk about a monitoring well, this isn't, it doesn't have a big well house or anything, like no pumps associated with it. It's literally 6-inch pipes that come up out of the ground about chest high or so, and they have locks on them, but it allows us to grab samples from the water that well taps, that aquifer the well taps, and do analysis on the water quality along with the chlorides, and use that information to gather data. And while we're working together to construct these wells, the state has agreed to take over maintenance and monitoring of the wells. So the information will be available to everyone.
So will they be putting in continuous monitoring devices?
We have talked about continuous monitoring devices. But if they do that, the state would do that, and they would maintain them. They use something called a hobo unit. You may be familiar with that.
Yeah. We've got some up in the northeastern counties right now.
Yes. So we'll, but they have talked about doing that. And then the other location, if you remember, we put 3 wells in at Burton Park, doing the same thing for the Black Creek Aquifer. And this would to locate 3 Castle Hayne wells in that location. And primary reason for that is when we were drilling the Burton Park wells, Dr. Sproul noted that on the geophysical logs, the Castle Hayne aquifer at that location was over 200 feet thick. So his comment is, we may need to be looking there for source water. So that's the purpose of those wells, to look at primarily quality, and then whether or not that is a good place to locate wells in the future, whether that be for us or on WASA or some sort of joint venture. But if you'll recall, our best well is the Deerfield well, and in between Deerfield and the Burton Park, if you look on a map as a crow flies, there's a pretty straight line in there, and Scientific is generally located in the middle of that, and they have some very nice performing wells. So Dr. Sproul is thinking there may be some natural cavity there that provides good source water from the Castle Hayne. And that goes back to the whole purpose of the Water Resources Group is to manage our underground aquifers sustainably and put wells where the water is and move it to where you need it. So that's why we're focused. And then the third site that will be in a later phase that we'll talk to you about is actually in Sneads Ferry off of 210. And the primary reason for that site is ONWASA has multiple production wells all along that Dixon. Matter of fact, they have a plant near the Dixon schools out on 17. So this monitoring well would be between the ocean and their wells
well.
to monitor that. So that would be a second phase.
How close is the closest monitoring well, say, to the ocean? Do you know?
Is there
That
some
we
on the
currently
base?
have, the base has some. And the base, as part of this effort, I shouldn't have left this out. As part of this effort, the base has just installed $400,000 worth of monitoring wells on their own.
Are they seeing saltwater intrusion in any of them?
They are not.
Okay.
They're not. But we want to be prepared, because they are the closest to that interface.
I think when Richard Sproul was here before, he mentioned that West Carteret had gone brackish.
When you say West Carteret, the water, so they have some wells at the end of Emerald Isle, and some of those have gone brackish. I think they drilled some knowing they were brackish, though.
They're trying to find where the line is.
So, no, I think they were drilling production wells, and I think they go to an RO plant. But I'm not 100% sure on that.
So we wouldn't have to worry about it until the base found it, correct?
It's gonna hit the base before it hits
Yes,
us.
it would hit the base before it would hit us, yeah. Because most of we do have a few inside the city, but most of our Castle Hayne wells are we have some in the Ramsey Road area, quite a few in the Ramsey Road area. So they're even on the other side of the city from the base. But it goes to, we still want to manage them sustainably. Because once it does get there, you can't ever go back.
Still have water, just becomes more expensive.
That's right.
Where you go, Dave?
We have some additional projects that we're working on as well. These are not necessarily captured in our CIP, but we wanted to mention these, kind of brief you on them. The water plant chemical feed line is also a project that we're currently designing and should be wrapped up with that fairly soon. The flow meter at Indian Drive Booster Station, that project was recently bid and has been awarded. The flow meter has been ordered, as I understand it, and we'll be installing that, I believe, in the next several weeks. Generators at wells 6 and 7 just went out to bid, so we look forward to our pre-bid meeting next Friday and then opening bids 2 weeks after that. The LTS Lagoon isolation valve improvements, that's one you may not have heard previously, but we're putting in a redundant valve system at the LTS to connect 2 of our lagoons there. We've had some issues in the past with the existing valve. Also, it's located in basically a wet well where it's full of sewage. So this will give us a dry well to be able to close off or isolate those lagoons one from the other and be able to move water from one side to the other. That's a design actually we did in-house, and it's up to bid right now. So we look forward to opening bids next Friday.
And the importance with doing that now is the lagoon levels are low. That's not one we could do with 10 feet of water sitting in our lagoon.
Yes, we anticipate that work being done within, I'd say within 3 weeks to a month, and that's being generous. The LTS Generator Repair. This is, you may recall that the generator at the LTS site was significantly damaged. We put this out to bid a couple of times and got back one bid for over $400,000. It's an 800 kW generator, so it's a hefty piece of equipment. So we worked together to come up with a solution to repair it, put together a bid package, got some interest. We actually have a contractor on board out of Michigan who's going to come in and repair it. So he's actually going to be on site next week or the following, still trying to pin down his date to come in and do his initial inspection. And we've got that. I think the bid came in at like $40,000, plus we added in some money as to cover any cost of parts that need to be replaced, which, he won't necessarily know all of that until he actually starts tearing it down. So we added in a $50,000 allowance for any parts that need to be replaced. And then the labor itself is about 40 grand. So we saved quite a bit of money by going this route. And, it's a car motor, right, essentially. So we felt like, it's a little more complicated than that. But we felt like we could do this and get that generator operating again for a long time.
Since Wally mentioned the lagoon levels, how have the blue frogs been doing and sludge build up at the bottom? And
William would probably be better to answer that question. I know that we haven't seen, I don't think we've seen the sludge reduction we would have liked to have seen, but we haven't seen any additional sludge either. And we have seen some reduction in sludge. The ones that turned out to not be as beneficial as we had hoped were the gold frogs, and we located those right around the pump station that sends the wastewater to the field to irrigate. Those have not been as beneficial as we had hoped. So, but that was something that I'm one of the ones that requested that be added after we did some site tours and saw what they had done in other locations. But I think the real challenge for those units, those 2 units that are right up against the station, is that it does a good job of treating that water, but then when we start pumping, that water's gone so fast that it can't treat what's going on behind it. So it all goes through in one flush, and so we haven't recognized any long-term benefit. The idea was behind it was that it would create some natural soaps that would help coat the line and the sprinklers and help prevent clogs and those kind of things, and we just really haven't seen that, unfortunately.
Have you thought about moving them away from that?
I don't know that even moving them away, I don't think you're gonna get that benefit. I think the largest benefit would be right there at the station.
Is there even enough water in the lagoon right now to run them though? You're
I
running
don't
really
know.
low. My understanding was
I don't
it
know.
required 4 to 5 feet, and
Right.
you don't have that, which
Not
is
right
good.
now.
Which
That's
is a
right.
good thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
But which
So,
is why I was wondering if you're
that's
just looking at solid sludge beds at the moment, if the
No,
water's
because
so
the
shallow.
blue frogs are actually in the treatment trains.
Lagoons, right?
That's right. So those always have water in them.
Right.
Those are always, they raise and lower a little bit based on flow, but they always have water in them. It's the storage lagoons that we're talking about, and really, even with our sludge survey we did, there was very little to no sludge in the lagoons. So, but Jill's correct. I mean, we don't have a whole lot of water in there, and
Great.
yes,
Usually you're complaining it's too high. So.
yes. Oh, we're not complaining.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably.
You're usually
We'll
panicking when
Yeah.
it's too high.
Yes. We will deal with what we're handling right now. We're happy.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Okay, with that, I guess we're on to the 21 to 30 CIP.
It is that time of year again. So Jason just did a good job of going over the projects the water and sewer projects that we had identified in FY20 of the capital improvement plan. Tonight, I'm going to kind of kick off the FY21 to 30, so our 10-year capital plan. Again, the purpose behind this plan is to plan those projects for the future that the city is likely or going to need. Our plan has a 10-year horizon. If you'll remember, up until, I believe it was last year, we actually had a 5-year horizon, and we expanded to that 10-year to meet state requirements, state law, regarding system development fees. The system development fee law basically said you had to have a 10-year plan. And we had, the good thing for the city is we really had multiple plans. We had wastewater plans, master plans, we had small area wastewater plans, and we had water plans, water engineering reports. So we had all of that information, and we actually had a lot of projects that we identified in our plan software, but we were only showing a 5-year window. So when we had to move to that 10-year window, it was actually pretty easy for us, which is a good thing because we're trying to look ahead and forecast, you know, the needs of the city. We remember the days of, you know, the special order by consent where we limit on sewer availability, and really we could have grown faster had we had more sewer to allot. So we don't want to get back to those days. So we're trying to do a very good job of planning for our future. So that the expansion of that 5 to 10 year horizon was really fairly easy for us. But that's why we went from 5 to 10 years. Now, what I will say is, you know, my crystal ball is not all that great. And if I could tell you exactly what we would need 10 years from now, well, I probably wouldn't be here. So, you know, it's, but we do our best based on historical information and talking to current developers and what they're planning and the, you know, the property they own or they're looking at, and how we think certain areas will develop out. So the purpose of the capital improvement plan is to identify all of those projects. And while you only see the water and sewer projects, there's also fire department projects in there, police department projects, recreation and parks, streets, stormwater. So it's an all-encompassing plan of capital needs. And it's funny because Jason and I were talking, one of the things that we call it our capital improvement plan, but some communities actually call it a community investment plan because it's what they need to invest in their community in the future. So this shows, this plan shows our project needs, but then it also tries to put a cost associated with those. So you're not just, you know, saying, yep, this is great, but then you also have to look, well, that is gonna cost money. So we need to be thinking about how are we gonna pay for that? And then it also identifies funding sources. So, you know, in our case, largely that's the water and sewer fund, but we also look for grant fund opportunities. You know, if recreation looks for grant funding as well as general fund support, and stormwater uses the stormwater fund, and we also look for grant funds there. And we even leverage DOT funds and, of course, Powellville funds. So we try to identify funding sources as well as the cost of the potential or the projects. And then we try to prioritize them. And as you'll recall, every year we have a discussion that you'll probably have in the next, probably not next month, but the month after that, about are we appropriately scheduling these projects? You ask very good questions about, well, I noticed you slipped that one a year or two. Can you afford to slip it, or is that going to cause you problems somewhere else? Or do you need to move something up or switch places? So it also helps us evaluate and prioritize those projects. A capital project is a project that exceeds a useful life of 5 years. It roughly takes you 12 months or longer to complete, and that's, I have to say, that's pretty much any infrastructure project because it takes time to design and then permit and then get easements and then to construct. So, and then has a cost greater than $50,000. So as Jason talked to you about those 5 or 6 smaller projects that he talked about, those are water and sewer projects that we're working on, but they're not capital projects because they don't meet these requirements. And those type of projects are typically funded through our divisions like utilities maintenance or the water plant or, you know, our land treatment site through their operating budgets. So they have some money in their operating budgets for upgrades, maintenance, repairs. So that's where some of those smaller projects are paid for from.
And is that out of that enterprise fund money? So what people are paying for their bills, that's going in towards these other projects?
Yes, so the water and sewer projects would all be funded by water and sewer, yes. So again, we talked a little bit about the, you know, estimating what those projects are gonna cost and then identifying funds to pay for them. You know, so when we do that, we wanna show what that expenditure amount is. We try to break it down by year. So if we think, you know, a project's gonna take us 2 years to construct, we try to show those expenditures over 2 years. Now, sometimes, you know, something takes us less time to construct than we thought, and a lot of times it takes us longer. So we try to estimate those expenditures. And then again, we tie that with funding sources. And so if we show a project that and this doesn't happen in water sewer as much as it does, say, recreation, where they identify a grant-funded project, well, if that's how they're gonna fund that project, then what they end up having to do is move that project out if they don't get that grant fund. So they'll slide that project to match when that funding cycle might be, or when they think they're going to be awarded. The other thing it does is it actually enables us to show our boards projects that we're looking for grant funds on. So we're not out there trying to grant fund a project that, you know, you or the city council is not aware of. So it allows us to focus our efforts on those projects that we've identified and evaluated and said are most important. And then obviously it gives accountability. In the current 10-year CIP, which goes from FY20, which is this year, to FY29, I broke it out. I mentioned that we focus in this group on water and sewer projects, so that would be those public utility projects you see right in the middle. Jason talked to you about the projects we're currently working on, and I don't remember the number, but let's say that, you know, there was 10 or so in there. Well, over that 10-year period, we've identified 32 water and sewer projects. And you can see the numbers for all of the other departments as well. So community development has 3, fire and emergency services has 4 projects in the current plan. NCDOT, which does impact the water and sewer fund, that's why they're in there, has 7. And I know that we've talked to you about those before. And as we're going through this project, we're going to meet with them and say, all right, let's talk about your timelines. You know, we need to be prepared to, you know, pay for our utilities to be moved or be out there ahead of you moving them. So let's talk about when those timelines are. And then water and sewer projects, we have 32. And then public works, you see 47. The reason that public works has so many is that's really your POW bill programs, a lot of them. So you'll have, you know, your street project that we do every year. You know, we haven't identified all the streets that we're going to do, but it's the street project that, you know, we have a program to rehab streets every year. So there's 10 street projects in there because we do one every year. Same with sidewalk, and then same with ADA, or American Disabilities Act projects. So that's where we have to go in and upgrade handicap ramps for sidewalks and those kind of things as federally required.
They just finished on Market Street.
That's right. And that one was actually done as part of a DOT joint effort. DOT actually paid for those.
They're just caulking them today.
Yes, and they did along Old Bridge Street, and they did some on New Bridge Street, and the most recent ones were on Hargett Street. Mm-hmm. And then Public Works also includes stormwater projects. So we do have, like, the Leonard Street culvert you mentioned. So we do have stormwater projects in that. And then recreation and transportation has a few. A lot of transportation projects are actually DOT type projects. So transportation has some city projects, but then they're also associated with the MPO, or the Metropolitan Planning Organization, which covers a much larger area than just the city. And they work a lot with DOT to program and prioritize our transportation needs in and around the city. And This is a timeline we showed you last year. I just updated it for this year. We're a little bit behind because of staff turnover. Of the people in the office, I'm the only one that's ever been involved with the capital improvement plan. So it's so Jason and we have a new project manager, Christy Bateston. She's been with the city for several years now, but she's moved over and she's a project manager with us. And then we have an engineering coordinator that we just hired named Randa Souls, so she'll be helping us as well. But I am the one that has kind of been here through the CIP process, so you'll probably be hearing from me quite a bit. But we have done our call for projects where we ask the departments, give us your projects that you foresee in the next 10 years. And really, we ask them to identify any project that they may have, even if it's further than 10 years out, so we at least can compile it into the database and we can actually schedule that to pop up every year so that it can be discussed. Does it need to be in the 10-year window or does it not? So the idea behind that is we have a database of projects out there that have been identified, and then you just have to discuss where they fit or whether we just push those out. We've done the department meetings, so we have met with all the departments that submitted new CIP projects and talked about where those projects, where they see those projects may fit, how they compare to projects that they currently have, and do we need to consider moving some of those projects out? So we've done all of that at a staff level so far. Tonight we gave you an update of where we stand with the ongoing current projects, and from here we will be taking the information we have, working with management and finance. We haven't involved finance at this point, but we'll be working with management and finance on getting all of those projects keyed in and then trying to get them prioritized and carry that discussion even further. And then we plan to be back to you next month to discuss the projects that have been identified for inclusion in the upcoming CIP, Capital Improvement Plan, as well as to talk about projects that we may see the need to move. And a good example would be the Bryn Mawr project. Do we leave that in the current plan? Do we slide it out? What do we do with that project? And then we will be to council sometime in February, at the very latest, the 1st of March, with a similar project, similar update that Jason gave tonight, but theirs will include all of the projects that we're working on. It will include all of our water and sewer projects, as well as our fire department projects we're working on and our recreation department projects that we're working on. And then hopefully from there we get the draft CIP to council in March. And then the idea would be, as we're doing this, we're continuing to work at a staff level because as you'll recall, every year you ask me, what are these projects going to do to our rate? Or what are these projects going to do to our system development fees? Do we need to look at those? So we will be working with we have two models, our rate model and our system development fee model. So we'll be working with finance to run different scenarios to talk about where those projects should be and how they should be timed and how they should be funded. And then, as always, we'll be looking for your recommendation to City Council, and obviously the budget has to be adopted by City Council by June 30th. So we'll be looking at a May to June adoption because the capital improvement plan is adopted along with the budget. It's not adopted ahead of the budget.
And just so I'm straight, for the March 21, we have fiscal year 20, fiscal year 29, should that be 20,
Yes, it
30?
should be 2130. I missed it.
Yeah,
I was hoping somebody wouldn't see that.
I was wondering, are they working on two at the same time?
No,
Yeah,
no.
so
It should be
update
21 to 30.
all the way across the
Good
board.
catch.
Okay. I was going to feel really sorry for you if you're having to do two at once.
No, one's enough.
One's definitely enough.
So, and that's where we're at. Any questions on the capital improvement plan.
Once you have the 10-year one done, because I guess this is the first time you're actually doing a full.
No, we did the
You did
full 10-year last
last
year.
You did.
They did
Yeah.
So
last
is it just, you're actually adding 1 year on and seeing where everything else shuffles? So it's not
That's
like you're.
correct.
So it's a little,
It's not quite as cumbersome as last year because we had to add the 1 new year plus 4 new ones.
right.
And this year, we have a 10-year plan, so we're just adding 1 year and then trying to decide where those others fall.
Gotcha. Which
Where
makes it a
you
little
gonna-
bit easier.
Yes.
Where you're gonna shuffle stuff front, beginning and end.
Yes.
Who outranks whom now in priority?
That is sometimes the harder.
Oh, and something
Discussion.
blows up or bursts or what have you, that.
Water first.
I don't know. The EQ gets kind of upset about the wastewater side. All right, thank you very much for that. Anybody else have any questions for Wally or Jason? So with that, old business, I guess. Any old business? How about any new business? I have one, welcoming our new board member.
Good God, new business.
Yes, welcome new person.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So if you would for TV land, would you say who you are?
My name is Logan Sosa. Mr. Thomas, he talked me into coming here. But now looking forward to it. I just want to be able to look at different ways to give back to the community and be involved, and that's why I'm here. So,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
We appreciate you joining us.
appreciate it, thank you.
Welcome.
Any other new business?
I have a couple of things.
Lovely.
I don't know if you saw, we had a sanitary sewer overflow on Wardola right into Thompson School Creek. And that sanitary sewer overflow was associated with a construction project. We're actually replacing the existing culverts that are there with a bridge. And the contractor was out doing exploratory digging, trying to spot the force main, which he's going to be responsible for relocating. And if you look at the picture on the right, it doesn't show up quite as well as I would have liked. But basically, he hit a 3/4 inch tap that we did not know was there coming off the force main. It's not very common that you would tap a force main, especially with a 3/4 inch line. So we're all kind of scratching our heads why it's there. I think our best guess is probably some sort of air release valve that was put in, because it is where it kind of comes up from going under the creek. So the spill that we had actually didn't come from the main, it came from that little 3/4 inch. And staff responded very quickly, both Anthony's crews in utilities maintenance and Pat Donovan's stormwater crew responded. You can see there, we pulled out a boom. While that won't necessarily contain the spill, it slows it down. We used our vac truck to vacuum up. They did dig a little containment pit, so that caught a lot of it. So we used our vacuum truck to suck that up, as well as a portion of the creek that was most concentrated. So we did what we could to help remediate the situation, but the contractor was actually digging, looking, trying to spot the force main, and came across, an undocumented line.
And
So
so
that's-
this is something that was there probably with the Wilson Bay plant, is that right, or is that what put in since then? That's
So the
main.
force main actually comes from when Wilson Bay was abandoned. It's actually the force main from that pump station that pumps over to, I think it goes all the way over to Canterbury Street, and comes in that way. Comes back through to the main pump station.
Less than 20 years old.
Yes.
Oh.
So it's not one
And
of
a
those
document-
ancient
but so
ones.
No, it's not, but it's not shown. We had the plans, and it's not shown on the plans. I don't know if, it could be one of those things that when air gets trapped in a line, it causes problems with your station. It just has trouble pumping against that pressure of the air in the line, and the pumps will actually sit there and spin and not move any wastewater. So pure speculation, because we actually have it going on in another part of town, is there could have been air problems that, our utility maintenance folks at some point came in and said, well, if we can relieve the air here, maybe that'll solve our problems. Again, pure speculation, but it is, you know, as you can see, they didn't actually hit the main. Yeah, it was a little line tied off the main that we didn't know existed.
Just a slight correction, but it's actually a 1-inch line.
Oh, 1 inch, sorry, instead of 3/4 inch.
We verified that yesterday afternoon.
Now, was this had to be reported to the state?
It did, because it did reach the creek.
Okay.
Yeah. And we reported conservatively. We weren't sure exactly how large the line was at first, and I think Anthony ended up reporting 2,000 gallons just to make sure that we covered it. So I think we were pretty conservative on that.
And now, is that going to be removed or just marked or?
Oh, it'll be removed because that whole force main changes
Okay,
with the new project.
gotcha.
And how long is it gonna take again, that project?
We should be done in May.
Cause that road's closed.
Yes.
Correct.
Until then,
Yes, sir.
and the boardwalk's changed.
Right, closed
It's
also.
closed. So, and I have one more new business. At our city council meetings and all of our boards and commission meetings, we're doing a census because this is the year of the census. So if you'll bear with me for just a moment, the purpose of the census is to count every person living in the U.S. It is required by our Constitution. It's something that our forefathers wrote into the Constitution. And the purpose is for really redistricting and representation in Congress. But there are other things associated with the census. For example, this is how funds are distributed. And the $1,623 you see is generally the federal funding that goes out per person, and the $205 is state funding that goes out per person based on the census. And I'll do my best to explain this slide. Basically, in 2010, we had a census update. We were able to verify that that census actually missed 22,000 people that were living in Onslow County, some largely associated with the military base. And we are able to quantify that number. So if you take that 22,000 and extrapolate it out, those $1,623 per person in federal funding, and the $205 in state funds that would come to Onslow County, we had a total loss of revenue coming to this county of $402 million, which is significant. And that's, of course, over the decade, but that's still a significant number. So the purpose that, you know, for nothing else, this shows the importance of the census to us. You know, the census is data that is used. It's used by our residents. It tells the story of our community. It shows the demographics and the representation, and businesses use it to determine where to locate. They'll actually use it to look at customer profiles, and I think the example that was given at City Council the other night, which I thought was a good example, is, you know, businesses use that to determine, even businesses that are locating here, what store do they actually bring? You know, and I think the term that was thrown out was, look at Belk's. You know, they'll bring a lower end Belk's here because of the demographics, because of the census information. And then real estate and developers also use this information. So responding this year will be easier than ever before. Matter of fact, I even laughed because as I went home from the city council meeting and I turned on the TV, there was a census commercial on. So you can do it online, over the phone, or paper. And they are going to be sending census takers out, because that's the commercial I actually saw, was talking about the census takers. The information that people give is secure. It's confidential for 72 years. This was something I learned the other night. And that was generally the age, the life of expectancy, average life expectancy of a person. So the idea there was research could be done for genealogy, but it's secure for 72 years. And it is not shared with others. And lastly, it's our civic duty. So we would like, and we're going to continue to try to get this message out and encourage people to make sure that they are counted in the census and counted here, because it has real impacts on our community. So with that.
Thank you. Anybody have any census questions?
Yeah, how are they
I hope
handling the
not.
military on base?
Better.
Yeah, because that was the mess last time, was that.
That was the problem.
So
And
what are
there
they
were-
doing now?
I can't answer all of those questions.
You said if we had any questions.
Glenn would be able to answer those,
Yeah.
but they, last time, from what I understand, they could be counted where their home was.
Deployed were counted as their home of residence
Yes.
instead of here.
I think
Yeah.
that's
That
a
was-
law.
that
was-
And most, I didn't
Even
get-
though they lived here and were
couldn't
deployed from here, they were counted as their home of residence.
Right, where they enlisted. So have they changed that?
changed that.
Yeah, they've changed that.
Okay.
So,
And I know that Glenn was very instrumental in working to get that changed.
Yeah, that was what caused a big problem last time.
Yes.
so my ignorance, the only data they're gonna collect is from these reports. That's where they get all their information.
That's,
That's all they're gonna have.
What it sounds like.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So,
How often do they do the census?
They do this every 10 years.
Every how much?
10.
10.
10 years?
Yes, sir.
This is the one that's gonna change the reapportionment in the House of Representatives and stuff too. There's
Yes.
gonna be states that are gonna gain reps and states that are gonna lose them.
Yes.
So we supposed to pick up.
Because people moved around.
Those
And
people
we
move
want to
around.
be a state that gains.
We will be.
I didn't get my check last time, so I
I think we anticipate we're picking up on congressional seats.
Yep.
That's,
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
anticipation.
What is that on TV?
Okay, so we have on the screen what our next meetings are going to be. The agenda for today also mentions the meetings through June. So hopefully all of us are going to be able to be in attendance on those dates. If you're not, please let Wally or Derek know.
Yes.
We have much better chances of meeting quorum these days, which is very good. So but we like having all of us here, so
I got one question before you adjourn.
sure.
Do they not send the census out like they used to in the mail?
I think they do. I think they will still send it. in
Because
the
that's
mail.
usually somewhere around the first of the year. And I've not received.
No, there was a date, I thought, coming up. Did they mention a date at the council?
Let me check my
I think there was-
information.
I think there was a date.
I
You
don't
sent a
know.
card to everybody to explain your options, you know. You can do it online, you just request a paper. What were the other things, telephone, maybe, I forgot.
Yeah, online, phone, and paper.
Yeah, I want
In
to
the
say
middle of
April.
in person.
I wanna say
It's
April.
spring.
If you would like more information, you can go to www.2020census.gov.
And quit bothering Wally with questions.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. About March 12th,
March
most
12th.
Jacksonville area will receive a card encouraging you to go online and fill it out.
okay.
And Jill
you,
just
Jill.
passed her eye exam, being able to read.
Exactly.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What council meeting is that, what's the date of the council meeting that they're gonna discuss the Parkwood region?
I'll get back to you on that because
There'll be a
we,
workshop, I'm sure.
yeah, it'll be a workshop and we were looking at next month,
Mhm.
but we had a few workshop items from Tuesday night. I think we had 3 or so that we didn't get to, that we
Rolled over.
pushed. And at the second meeting of the month, we are limited on time because of the city council meeting at 7 o'clock. So I don't know if it'll be the first meeting next month or the second meeting next month, but we'll get that out to you.
Let us know.
Yes.
Thank you.
So any other questions or comments for Wally or Jason?
You can use Anthony and Carrie also.
Spread the joy. Well, since you mentioned Anthony, how's everything going out there with the, or Carrie, with the grease traps? Everything?
It's going well. As you know, we've had some reorganization since I came in about a year ago. It's been a learning curve for some employees because new employees have new duties. And figuring out some of the logistics with doing the grease trap has been a challenge for new staff as well. But going forward next month, you will see numbers more representative to what's going on and what you're used to seeing. So.
Can I say to Carrie, your guys did a great job during the holiday season. They were moving, buddy, moving.
I know, and I appreciate that, and I will pass that information on to Michael Connors, because Michael is the sanitation superintendent, and I'm sure he'll be very appreciative of that comment.
They were everywhere, moving like little busy bees. Okay.
And thank you for having the calendar out, because I know some of my neighbors were concerned or questioning when are we supposed to have things out on the streets and all of that. Yes. So if you have not picked up your calendar.
Yes, it's in the calendar.
I haven't even seen one yet.
You haven't seen one yet?
It went to that
They don't
house.
deliver them to
It
that.
went to your house.
Not
They don't
delivering
deliver
them
them there,
anymore?
not there.
Well, that's
They
where you're
deliver them
at.
to your home.
Yes.
It's at the house, Jim.
I got mine.
I can't
before-
read, I have to look.
I've got an extra you can have.
I got mine before Christmas.
You did?
Yeah.
Yeah, the fire department went around and looked.
So yeah, if you didn't get one,
Why can't they deliver them like they used to?
They
They
did
did.
deliver them, buddy.
they're on our
They didn't-
doorsteps.
They didn't bring one to me.
I bet they brought it to your house.
Well, they might have, but they didn't bring it
They're
to
not
me.
gonna have it.
Get him one.
We're bringing
Oh,
you
we're
one
getting
down.
them right now.
You'll have one before you leave, dear, okay?
They got
And
'em-
they do have them out at the
they
main
got
desk
'em
in
on
the
video
City
shop.
Hall.
Be out front.
Yeah, so you can pick one up at City Hall if you didn't get one on your doorstep.
Thank you.
So with that, if there's no other comments, questions, concerns, I make a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I'll second it.
Second, and we are adjourned.